Howdy. Happy Disability Pride Month, folks. We have got an interview today that I think y'all are gonna love. I'm looking for my amazing guest. Happy Disability Pride Month. Happy Disability Pride Month. Hey Keith, how you doing? Hey Keith. Well, look, we got it first try. I'm super excited. Okay, guys, we're going to do introductions. I have today on, first and foremost, it's been a while since I've done an interview. Sorry, guys. If you don't know me, I am Arron. I'm the CEO and founder of Claiming Disability, a media organization of one working to educate, advocate, and empower the disabled community through media projects. And I'm super, super excited to have with me today my friend Leroy Moore, the CEO and founder of Crick Hop Nation, Emmy-winning, guys, I'm not taking any guest requests, Emmy-winning, are you hearing me? Emmy-winning producer. And he was recently a consultant on the documentary Tell Them You Love Me that has over 4 million views on Netflix right now currently. So guys, it's been top 10 on Netflix for weeks, this documentary. It is chilling, compelling, a vital conversation that I feel like we need to be having in the disabled community. So I'm so excited to have Leroy on the podcast to talk about this critical film because we need to be talking about this case. It's important. So let us know if you've seen the documentary. Yeah, let us know your thoughts and we'll kind of go through. Leroy, how you doing?
Doing good. Thank you so much, Arron, for having me. You're the first and only person that reached out and said, "Look, let's talk about it." So, thank you so much.
We were talking before this, and I'm like, I cannot. That astounds me, guys. We have an Emmy-winning. You hear me? Emmy-winning consultant who has done a lot with Netflix, with Rising Phoenix, and with Tell Them You Love Me. And I cannot believe that we don't have more media outlets reaching out, talking about this critical documentary. So first and foremost, Leroy, for people who are living under a darn rock, why don't you give us just a quick little synopsis of the film and how you got involved with this amazing project?
Okay, so thank you once again for in the description. Mustache beard in my kitchen. So the producers of the film came and got me. Did the research and they found my name and they said, "Leroy, what would you like?" Well, they said, "Leroy got this trailer, and they told the history about it." I was like, "Oh, I remember the case." When it came out, that case was like, "Oh my God." So I was like, "Oh, okay, I remember that case." So, I looked at I'm all in it. So, of course, this case is controversial, but it when I this is might be one of the few films that star disabled main character. So I was like, and so so and they were so happy because they found out all the stuff that I do, and being a black receive, CP. So yeah, so I was in that like this. So the second step was they say, okay, here's the full look at it and give us some directions, right? So
Right.
so I know they came, I read about it in the New York Times. I was like, wow. And I, as I'm a, a facilitator, communication person that uses it. But in the 90s, I did respite care for five boys. They all use facilitated communication. All of them had autism or palsy, and most of them were black and brown. So in the 90s, I was like, oh yeah, I know about facilitated communication. And all five of them now today are living on their own. They're part of still use um, facilitated communication. So I want to make that clear from the beginning is that I support facilitated communication because I know how, and I worked with boys back in the 90s doing it. So yeah. So when I found out that this was a part of the movie, I think let's do this. When I looked at the like, wow, the New York Times article, all this history came back from from the past. It was dropped. It's like, oh, looking at the main character that has severe CP, being a black and and looking at murders and and looking at the brother, and first I thought the teacher came into the story. I thought because of the way that I grew up, and my mother was like, have me in different programs. He fought for everything. So I I was questioning like, is Derrick, in his I was like, what's going on with that story? And movies, you have to cut things. So I thought that was a big piece of it. It's like, did the mother run out against institutional isms trying to get services? When you watch a 5-year-old man in his bedroom, so that piece wasn't really movie that, but that really hit me hard. Being a respite care worker for a lot of black and brown boys, and their parents hired me because they wanted their sons, to, with the disability doing it. So when I did not see that in the beginning, I was like, oh, okay. and also I wanted to say that I told the producers, and the producers really took my knowledge, in hand. So the first thing I was like, okay, we can't get more disabled people involved because this is not going to be, on my dime. So they reached out to Devin Cass. I'm right. She's in Berkeley, and she's a professor, and she has CP. She has her speech. She doesn't use facilitated communication. But anyway, I told them about her. I told them um, um and he's a black in New York. I told them about him, and he plays the lead of Derrick. So, so I told them a lot about her, people with disabilities, in the field. I gave them my range of uh, you arrested care of a lot of disabled black and brown, you know, so communication. I told them straight up that I'm for um, facilitated communication. The thing, and I have to be clear about this. The thing that I wish that early in that process, I wish that I been more on on connect to um um activists for facilitate communication because I didn't it didn't really until somebody told me when the movie was out that the psychiatrist or the doctor but he's known in the community to be anti facilitate communication. And
That's how the movie reads, and that's kind of some of the comments is, um, you know, I, so guys, for the folks asking what is facilitated communication, so this documentary um, revolves around a communication style called facilitated communication, where there are caregivers that assist you with communication. And like Leroy was saying, in the 90s, working with autistic individuals, he utilized facilitated communication. The unfortunate thing about this documentary is it really only showed one side of facilitated communication and how it's utilized. And I do want to make the point that, and you guys can look this up, the Autistic Support Network recently came out for facilitated communication in conjunction with ACA, or excuse me, with AAC, Assistive Technology Communication. Like, so there's times that facilitated communication works for the disabled individual, and the Autistic Support Network was concerned about all of these organizations coming out and saying, facilitated communication doesn't work for anybody, because disability is not a monolith. And we can't say that facilitated communication is a method that is completely debunked for everyone. Yes, there have been a lot of reputable organizations that have come out and have said we no longer utilize facilitated communication, but I am concerned as a disabled person who has cerebral palsy, but I am verbal. I am concerned that we're not listening to more disabled voices on this topic.
Yeah, thank you. I am too, very, very concerned. And yeah, I'm a little bit hurt to role in the movie and how the movie twisted it and made his voice louder than anybody's voice in the movie. So you leave the movie thinking that facilities and communication don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And and for me that was my point, and yeah, that to really see that happen.
And didn't you find it interesting? Let me back up. I'm so excited to talk about this documentary. So for folks who haven't seen the documentary, the core of the documentary is Derrick D-Man is working with a woman named Anna Stubblefield, who is a disability studies professor and utilizes facilitated communication to communicate with Derrick. And then their relationship becomes sexual. So this documentary is about consent. Can you consent with disabled individuals who have an intellectual disability? Where is the line of consent? And throughout the documentary, you get Anna's perspective, you get the family's perspective, but we don't hear Derrick's perspective anywhere. And I want to say that just because somebody is nonverbal and has an ID, intellectual disability, does not mean that they are incapable of communicating. And I think one of the things that upset me the most in the film is you had two professionals, Anna, and then you had another professional evaluating Derrick, and he was not, the other professional that they brought in, I want to say his name was Devin, but the other professional they brought in, they did not give Derrick a keyboard to communicate like he had been communicating with Anna, and they were just relying on him to have pictures and not have his communication style of using a keyboard. So I'm sitting here going, we have one professional who's advising for the court and is saying Derrick has the mind of a 3-year-old and is unable to consent, but they're not giving him any other forms of communication to communicate with. That I have an issue with.
Yeah.
And another thing is the infantilization happening with Derrick. You literally have a mother saying, all Derrick does now is masturbate. Derrick is 45 years old. Derrick is a man. And
Yeah.
I know y'all don't want to hear this. Buckle up. Disabled people are sexual. Even people with intellectual disabilities are sexual, and they deserve sexual release. Now, I'm not, condoning what happened in the film or anything like that. That's not a. I am pro disabled people getting sexual release. That is what I am pro of.
Yeah. And I like to talk about that a lot about the mother. and because I have a very controversial side to it, is that his mother really trained Derrick as a person that will never grow up, and and that that was damaging. When she walked him into the courtroom, you could tell that she did that deliberately. Like Derrick can't walk. She did that because she wanted to convince the jurors that Derrick has to rely on her to even walk. So I bring that up because there's not only one quote unquote bad person in this story. And a lot of people, I mean, the film director, when I first saw it the first time, I came back and I was like, wow, the mother is really, treating Derrick like he will never ever grow up. And in the film, which is like, wow, yeah, we didn't even look at that point, So that point really, I mean, you get if you see the whole movie, Derrick goes through so many changes. When he first wants to go to school, he finally gets a teacher. His life totally changes. I mean, he's doing speaking tours. He's taking classes. He's, having a quote unquote relationship. He's learning how to communicate. Then at the end, he returns back home with his parents, and he's back in his room. And his parent and his brother thinks that facilitated communication was a joke and it didn't work. The thing I like to explain too is that they said that they tried it at home and it didn't work. People, when I was doing respite care for I'm gonna call them my boys because they're my boys. They always be my boys. It took me months and months and months to learn their way to communicate, and we went through so much uh outbursts because of course they were outbursting when they communicate. So it took me months and months to learn that, but when I did, oh my God, the boys is like, Leroy, come, can you come over and communicate with my friends because they don't get it. So I'm saying that to say that it took months and months and really hard work, outburst after outburst, to get their communication skills down. In the movie, the mother and the brother tried it twice and it didn't work. I was like, of course it didn't work because he has a certain relationship with his mother. And that relationship is like, oh, mom's gonna do everything for me. Mom cooks up my food, mom does this, mom does that. So if you have that relationship, you're not gonna, try to a new way of communicating because it's you have this only one type of relationship. When I was doing respite care at this program, at this day program in the 90s, my supervisor was like, Leroy, it's so hard on these youth, and it's funny because the parents liked it. The parents is like, yeah, Leroy, because you have you what's that word? Oh, I forgot the word. Anyway, you see yourself in them, so you want to make sure that they will live up to their abilities, So so of course I'm gonna push them hard, and all the boys that I took care of, like I said in the beginning, now they are independent. They live on their own. They have their own job, and it took us work years and years to get to that. The parents in the movie didn't go through that. They tried it twice at home. And it's like, oh, it didn't work. So,
Right. And like
yeah.
you keep communicating, it's disabled people can have them exactly. I want to read your comment that you just said. Another thing, well, that's a good comment too, but I want to read. No one ever thinks to ask Derrick what he wants and talks about what's happening to him as far as changes go. How does he feel? I want to ask, and I know, you've been in close contact, with the Netflix producers, but why aren't we getting Derrick's perspective? Because again, D-Man, again, he is able to communicate when he is given the right tools to do so. And so that not only does it create this strange dynamic in the documentary, like what you're talking about, where, you have all these people, you have the brother, you have the mother, assuming competency and saying, oh, Derrick's not capable of that. Derrick's not capable of that. Like, and it's just, it is hard. But on the other side of it, where this true crime documentary is in classic form is, you have Anna, who's potentially, abusing her position of power. So, Leroy, I think it's really interesting because I've read a lot of articles that you've been quoted in about this film. And one of the things that I love, you've been quoted in Deadline, you've been quoted in The Hollywood Reporter. I know, Leroy, you're everywhere right now.
Really?
But I love.
Nobody tells me this. I never seen one article.
Y'all, nobody's telling him this shit. What the fuck? Like, for real. Like, the hell? Do you guys just write these art? Like, he is a consultant on the film. Again, it's Disability Pride Month, and you're not consulting your disabled consultant. That's bullshit, Leroy. But I've read a lot of articles. I will send you all those articles. I was sending you some of the articles that you were quoted in. But one of the things that you kept focusing on when you were talking to the directors of this film was continue to humanize Derrick. Derrick is a person. Derrick is a man with wants and needs, and I don't want to misspeak for the article, but the humanization piece, and I think what this documentary is lacking is the humanization of Derrick. Because again, in true crime doc fashion, we are not giving a voice to potential victims. We are not. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that if I wasn't supposed to. But
Yeah, well, the thing is like how you get that voice when the mother is overprotective. So how would you get that voice? And it's like two sides of the stick. One, the mother is overprotective, and on the other side is that facilitated communication is thrown out. So how would you get Derrick's voice? One incident in the film when remember when Derrick was in class and he told the professor to his teacher to never do that again. Remember when the teacher was talking for him and he went off. He's like, do that again. That was the point when Derrick had the light shine on him, and I wish the movie would expand on that point because that was the point that the only time Derrick took a stand for his own voice.
Right. And this person is saying Anna exploited her passion and power, and Derrick wants and needs outside of somebody who controls him, Anna or his mother. So there's a lot of control being exerted on this person. I do want to get a little controversial. I already warned Leroy that I would, but like, so with on there's obviously some moments like you're talking about in the film where she's evaluating, he's writing a paper and she's essentially putting her words, like she said in the film, well, I could make that sound better. And D-Man is going back and forth with her and he's being like, don't do that. These are my words. I want to keep my words. So that, for me, is when I saw the first abuse of her power. The second abuse of her power was, saying that Derrick doesn't like gospel music, saying that Derrick is a vegetarian. I mean, it's, I do think that the documentary, on a positive, if you can call it a positive note, did a good job of when a caregiver overexerts their power and I think, and then you have consent, and it's really interesting because she says in the film, Derrick seduced me, and we should allow that to be a reality, that a person with an intellectual disability can seduce somebody who is able-bodied. And I have a lot of feelings about that particular statement, but I do think there were some overreaches of power. And as we saw, Anna was sentenced to 12 years in prison, and then she only served, I think, like 4 months or something like that. But what's kind of your take on Anna? Obviously there's been a lot of outrage in the able-bodied community in regards to this documentary. What are kind of your thoughts about the documentary as a whole in that regard, with consent, with Derrick, with his family, with white saviorism? There was some critiques about her being a white woman coming into a black family, that had a disabled child, or not a child, a man. Okay, but
Yeah,
what's the documentary? It's Tell Them You Love Me.
yeah, that's a good point. I think Anna, well, being a teacher and have a teacher-student relationship. I mean, forget about the disability. That alone is a no-no. I'm a graduate student right now. If and I'm a TA. If I had a relationship with a student in my class, that'd be a ground for dismissal because you can't be objective and grade the person. So
Right.
that's number one. Forget about the disability, forget about the race. It's just teacher to student relationships just don't go. So Anna should have known that, you know. I mean, and then she's married with kids. I mean, she threw everything away just to have this relationship with this guy, you know. So that's one thing, you know. And yeah, and now and to put on that she's the one that's teaching Derrick the way to communicate. I mean, she holds a lot of power, you know, and it's so sad to see because a lot of people of color, parents, that's one reason that they don't let breast carers take care because they really respect the home and they don't want anybody coming into that safe space. So it's a catch-22 because without this teacher coming in and teaching Derrick facilitate communication, then you know how would he get his voice across? And I go back to the mother again. I was like, how can you have this 25-year-old in his bedroom and you don't know about all these services? You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm a single man, but if I was a parent, I would try my damnness to get my son some kind of. I mean, just a simple A B C D E F board. I mean, that's a simple board. You start out simple, then you go to being complex. I've always questioned like, why did the mother, you know, push further to have some kind of communication with her son, you know. So being the white savior, I think also that the mother left that open. When I was growing up, my mom got me into cerebral palsy education because she knew the one in Hartford, Connecticut. She was smart. She knew that cerebral palsy association had a black um, executive director that had CP. So my mother's like, you're going to go to this organization because she is going to be your mentor. And that changed my whole life, you know. So I just wondering, did Derrick's mother ever had that vision, saying, okay, I'm going to get my son into this program that I see his future. You know, I see a black disabled adult, you know, doing this program. I think that kind of thinking is, if you have that kind of thinking, then you have the thinking that your son is going to grow up and your son's going to, you know, be part of it. And I don't think that the mother had that viewpoint. So of course she didn't get the services that she needed to make that happen. But that was not a part of the story, you know. You never get the part of the story of, you know, what happened to the mother getting services. You know, was it institutionalism that blocked her from getting services? You know, because a lot of Black parents run up against racism in the disabled community. So it's like, okay, I won't get services because it's too hard. See, we don't know that in the movie. That's all we know is that the mother and the son said, "Oh, he's in day programs." Well, what does that day look like? Is it people just watching TV all day? Or
Right.
are they really learning? So yeah.
One of the things I found, and guys, this is a hard watch. Trigger warnings, all the things. It's a hard watch all the way around. But I guess I wasn't really outraged at things I probably should have been outraged. I mean, I was more outraged with like the brother saying I had to go through a grieving process of believing my brother was capable of all these things and now he's not. And I'm like, it's not to say that he's not capable, but we have to give people the right tools in the right context. And I'm not saying that there wasn't abuse, and obviously, like you guys are talking about a conflict of interest with Anna, but again, even after this incident, making sure that Derrick has the right kind of resources, that he's connected to, people who can help him communicate in a way that's not a conflict of interest, but just, and I struggle with how this documentary is presumed competence. Thank you. The mother and the brother, severely infantile. And guys, I'm glad that somebody else is saying this and it's not just me. Ooh, yes, please watch this documentary. It's amazing. Leroy Moore was the consultant producer. And guys, I don't know where this misinformation is coming from, but disabled people consulted on this film. Disabled people are interviewed in this film. Not Derrick, unfortunately, not D-Man, which I wish he would have been, which if they do a season 2, which hopefully Leroy will be a part of, they will have Derrick's point of view, because for me, that was a huge misstep to just have Anna talking about her feelings and there's no input from Derrick reinforcing this idea that facilitated communication doesn't work and it's an abuse of power, and how it was framed when it didn't show any other ways that it can be successful is my hard time with it.
Yeah, and it leads to at the end saying, okay, yeah, it's facility communication didn't work because at the end, what really enraged me at the end, Derrick is gonna go back home to his bedroom. I mean, this guy has been on the roller coaster, having a quote unquote relationships, going to college, speaking, writing papers. All of a sudden he's gonna go back to his and that's one thing that's like it's one thing that stayed in my mind. It's like he didn't protest, he didn't, I don't know. If I was there, I would,
Protested by masturbating, and
yeah,
his mom being like, my boy is an angel and he never would have thought about masturbating before this. And I'm just like, but your son is of age and it's totally fine for disabled people to masturbate. Like, I'm just like, I will die on this hill. Like,
yeah.
yeah, no, Derrick was not interviewed in this documentary. It's not from Derrick's point of view. This is people around Derrick, which I find disconcerting. Because, guys, the other piece of this is the TikToks. It's hard to find a right way to support him. Well, he needs tools, that Leroy is talking about, like, with his family, like, the family needs to make sure that they're giving him the right tools. And I live in Iowa. There's a lot of disabled people who are under guardianships that they don't want to be under. There's a lot of disabled people who are very restricted sexually because of the nonprofits and the services that openly believe disabled people, regardless whether you're a disabled person in a group home or you're a disabled person with intellectual disability, they do not believe disabled people deserve STD training, need sexual education of any kind. And that, for me, I'm like, these nonprofits and agencies are supposed to be giving disabled people autonomy. And when we have a mindset that disabled people are incapable of being sexual, but we have all these nonprofits that are saying, no, this isn't appropriate, like, we have this disconnect where parents actually think it's okay to be that restrictive with their disabled child or disabled adult in this matter.
And also, it's hard to say, but a parent at their age, you just can't flip and say, okay, we're going to try this tomorrow for a couple of days. Because he had 35 years living the way that he lived with his parents. So his parents threw down what the path was going to be. And that path with Derrick was, go to your day program, come home, and go to your room. It wasn't an act role like my parents. My parents had to be going everywhere and reading disability stories in the 70s. So my parents made sure that I was surrounded by people with disabilities. I was surrounded with the high, respect for themselves. So I'm saying that is that Derrick's parents laid out this path in the beginning, and now he's 20-something years old. It's gonna be hard to really break that path. That's why it's a little bit easier when somebody comes in, like I did with respite care back in the 90s. It's easier for me to come in because the boys said, okay, I can act this way with Leroy because Leroy is not my parent. And it's so funny. One parent saw us in the community, and she's like, "Oh my God, he can do that! He at home, he doesn't do that." I was like, so I'm saying that is that very hard to change habits or relationships when you put down one type of relationship, and that's what Derrick's mother did. So, yeah.
Guys, it's a complicated documentary all around. My issue is the discourse after this documentary. Y'all are being ableist as fuck. And I'm just like, the TikToks that I've seen of people who are like, who would want to have sex with somebody who wears a diaper? Disabled people wear diapers. Like, it's totally fine. Stop. And I just like, and again, I go back to, guys, the people who are having the discourse in this live right now, please, if you're a disabled person, speak up on watching this documentary. and give us some feedback, because Leroy and I were talking before this, and it's like nobody has talked about this documentary. It's difficult subject matter. It's touching on a lot of things: guardianship, consent, sexual abuse, caregiver abuse. But these are things we need to not be afraid to talk about. Facilitated communication. Again, like, yes, there have been a lot of reputable organizations that have demonized facilitated communication and said that it is not a way of communication. But again, you have the Autistic Support Network, a nonprofit by autistic individuals for autistic people by autistic people, who are saying facilitated communication needs to be left as an option along with AAC and other communication styles. And the way the letter was worded was, we need to keep these communication styles open. And yes, have there been cases of abuse and overreach with facilitated communication? Yes. And we always need to keep that in mind when we're, utilizing these. But that's with any practice. There can always be overreach and, issues. And it concerns me, Leroy. Again, like I had so many disabled people who are like, I don't want to talk about this. It's too hairy of an issue. There's a lot of gray area. And I feel like in any disability rights case, there's a lot of gray area. Now, I'm going to toss something at you, but one of the articles that you were quoted in Deadline said that the producer said he believes this is a twisted romance story. And Anna is actually coming out in support of a disability rights stance. What do you think about that part? Because I've got a lot of feelings about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
So you're saying that Anna, the teacher, is coming from the disability rights kind of framework on having a relationship. Well, like I go back to the beginning, it is basic. You just don't have a relationship with your student. You just don't do it. That's with no disability or disability, you just don't do it. So that's
Right.
number one. Number two is, beyond that, is she has his feelings, and it's very rare, and we know it's very rare in the community to have a non-disabled person come out and say, hey, I like this disabled person. You know, it's very rare. So when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's so good. She's outspoken about having a relationship with this disabled person. Because you don't see that in society, in community. So when I first saw it, I was like, wow, that's um that's I want her to make that stand. I mean, like I said, we the teacher and relationship. Just one thing is she's not a teacher and she's just a part of the community. I mean, I would like that. You know, women say, "Oh, Leroy's hot," And
I
it's not.
mean, are they wrong? Like, they're not wrong. Like, you know. I'm
Well,
very,
yeah,
y'all, but you know, like, I'm very pro disabled people are sexy. And I know able-bodied people don't want to hear it, but even people with intellectual disabilities are sexy. And I think that is a tough pill for able-bodied people to fucking swallow.
oh yeah, totally. I mean, when I was this was years ago when I was dating my ex girlfriend at the time, she was not disabled. I was disabled. Yeah, I'm disabled, of course. And oh my god, the reactions that we got in public was like, oh my god. And we used to play on their emotions. So one time we were on this city bus, and we saw that a lot of people were looking at us. So we just had a French kiss right there, and people freaked out. Oh my God, he's kissing his caretaker.
Of course. I get it. I get my husband as my brother. I get my husband as my caregiver. My husband works in healthcare, so he's always in scrubs. So, of course, I'm in a wheelchair and he's pushing my wheelchair. And, of course, you know, and then when, they're like, oh, that's so sweet and good for you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the total fucking catch in this scenario. Y'all fucking look at me. I'm gorgeous. Like, my husband got a fucking catch when he got me, okay? Like, it's not, and again, there's just, and I go back to those TikTok videos, there is such a, okay, this is going to piss you off, Leroy, but there are videos of people basically cutting away to D-man Derrick's face and being like, how could anybody be in love with that? Your ableism is showing, your fucked up shit is showing, and I'm not saying I'm justifying this documentary or anything, but you need to cut your ableism out when it comes to love and disability, because again, this is, I think the disabled community is in the right to be like, this is not, because disability is always perceived in the lens of tragedy, right? And this is like the most tragic, fucked up scenario that could possibly be, because there's a lot of layers. There's abuses of power, there's blah, 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 there's all this stuff. Instead of just having, an able-bodied person and a disabled person falling in love and being like, dude, that's cool. No, that's not enough. It's got to be like some really tragic, fucked up shit, because y'all can't view disability in a lens that is not tragedy. And unfortunately, during Disability Pride Month, y'all have this as the trending documentary. But this is not disabled representation as a whole. This is one story, y'all.
Yeah. I mean, come on, we can flip the script and put Donald Trump's face, and it's like, who wants to date him? Who wants to date Donald Trump? Yeah. I mean, anybody can fit that picture, who wants to date such and such, so that concept of who wants to date this person it's so we're in 2024 and we're still acting like it's 1920, you know?
Right. We just got a magazine in The Economist saying,
Yeah.
person who uses a walker, which I use a walker, y'all, like, cannot lead. And I'm like, again, we have ableist after ableist narrative dictating these conversations. And I'm so grateful to you, Leroy, that you were on this film, that you consulted on it, that you were a voice, because you and I know all too often with these stories and with disability in particular, able-bodied people aren't even fucking or able-bodied people, disabled people aren't even consulted on this shit. And we're talking about disability rights issues, because disability rights intersects with everything. Like, and we only get able-bodied perspectives. So of course we're disgusted. Of course it's this outrage and this disgust. And I'm like, do I think Anna represents disability rights? No, I do not. She is not a disabled person. She will never represent this community, but it is a story that has enough nuance that has been told in the disabled community a multitude of times. So I'm really grateful that this became a documentary, because I've heard about this story for a long time, but I'm sure you have too.
Yeah, and it also can give leverage to. I want to give some love to Tommy J. Curry. Tommy J. Curry does Black male studies, and he brought this case up years ago. And he said because he really looks at Black males and the sexual abuse of Black males, and people don't know about that. So he talked about being a Black disabled male himself, and in this case, and having a Black disabled male being used like this, and he brought it into Black male studies, and I give it up for him, because I don't see Black feminists talking about this case, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you should be super proud of it. I know that it's controversial. I know the disabled community doesn't want to talk about it. But look, it's out there. We're talking about disability. It's an interesting case with a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, I don't understand why they don't want to talk about it. I mean, it's sad to say, but it happens a lot. I used to work in nursing homes and group homes. I used to see a lot of abuse and neglect and sexual abuse that goes on. So, it's hard to say, but this stuff, it keeps on going out of sight, out of mind, and then we don't know about it, but it happens. So we need to talk about it, as a community,
Right. Rebecca's saying it gets people thinking about things they usually want to sweep under the rug.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I just think it's really interesting. And again, I go back to where's Derrick's voice? At least we could have Derrick's voice a little bit with Leroy leading this charge and actually being a Black disabled man leading this charge. And are you still with me? It kind of glitched for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We might have to wrap this up. But I'm just really thankful that you're part of this. And like I said, when I saw your name on the screen, I was like, good. If anybody should be representing the disabled community, and talking about this case. And I just love you weren't afraid. You weren't like, oh no, I don't want to, rock the boat or whatever. Guys, controversial stories exist. And I know it was controversial when I interviewed the cast of the Dahmer series. But again, you had Black disabled deaf actors who were part of that series, and they were Emmy winner, or they were Emmy nominated, and we weren't talking about them.
Yeah,
Everything I saw, every video I saw was like, oh, that black disabled guy. This person didn't even have a name. His name is Rodney Buford Jr. Like, guys, when we talk about disability, we've got to give it some teeth. So I implore you to hopefully not be afraid to have these conversations. Watch the documentary. It's good that it makes you think. It's a good thing, Leroy, if there's one thing you could change about the documentary, or if, you get a season 2, what do you think you're going to try to get?
I think one thing I would change is that, of course, I would get pro facilitate communication activists on it. And that's one thing. And if they ever had a season 2, which I don't think, because it's based on a true story, so it's but if they did, I would definitely get deeper into Derrick's life and Derrick's voice, and try to get his voice out there. If it's just pointing with pictures or something, So yeah, and getting his friends, because he's going to these day programs for years, so he must have friends in those day programs. So yeah.
Is he friends with his brother by choice, or is it because he's the only one around? I mean, straight up, it's just, guys, I implore us to remember that people with intellectual disability, people who are nonverbal, have and deserve autonomy over their own bodies. So I know this is a complex case, but if you're an able-bodied person in this chat by chance and you haven't consulted a disabled person about this film, consider talking to a disabled person on their feelings about this documentary, because I think you'll be interested to find an array of opinions. I've certainly seen it since I posted the ad for this chat, and I'm just so grateful that you were able to sit down with me today. Thank you so much. Oh, did we get, uh-oh. Hopefully it'll come back. Whoops. Okay, guys, we might have to wrap up, but I appreciate you guys, and I